Hey, what's going on? John W. Davis and James Williams here. We're at the Rose Bowl. It's time to preview this big game. We've been covering this all week from different angles. I got a chance to talk to Michigan and Alabama at Media Day. I know you had the chance to do that earlier at some availability. But in most football games, especially when it's elite players, it often comes down to the quarterback. Let's start with them. The quarterback for Alabama is Jalen Milroe. The quarterback for Michigan is J.J. McCarthy. Both of them experienced in their own ways. They've gone through their ups and downs. You wrote a preview story talking about who has the edge. Let's kind of start just overall. What are some of the topics you talked about in that story?
Yeah, just sticking with the topic of the quarterbacks. One thing for me, Jalen Milroe, kind of playing with the chip on his shoulder and looking to prove a lot of people wrong. One thing he said during the week, he kind of was, I don't know if unfiltered is the word, but he didn't want to hold back at all. Just kind of asked about how the year has been for him, and he kind of, was able to kind of have appreciation for the moment and the situation he's in now, but also look back and realize last year his offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien, told him he didn't even think he should play quarterback. So here he is as a starting quarterback this year. Did go through some up and downs, as you mentioned. He did get benched at one point early in the season. I know Nick Saban even waited till week 1. I think David named a starter. So it's not like Jalen Milroe was a for sure to even be starting. But
and he was pulled and got back in the starting lineup too.
He was pulled, worked his way back in. Again, going back to Bill O'Brien saying he shouldn't even play quarterback. One thing he said was, he kind of said, but here I am. Look where I'm at now. So I think he's definitely playing with a chip on his shoulder. You talk about the other quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. There's some speculation on what he's going to do after this game. This might be his last game at Michigan. They did ask him.
But he has eligibility to come back.
He has eligibility to come back. I think he's going to come back, but he's not speaking on it much. Harbaugh's not speaking on it much. We asked Jim Harbaugh about it at Disneyland, and all he said is, "Hey, I tried talking to JJ about it, but much like he said, it's a one-track mind. We're focused on this game." And I think that's the approach they need to have, obviously, going into this game. But in the back of their head, they got to know who the quarterback is for the future. But at least for now, they're dialed in, they're focused. The other thing was JJ was kind of banged up the last 5 games, and he kind of admitted some of that. He kind of said, "Yeah, I was probably a little more banged up than I let on." So that's something to keep an eye on. But also at the same time, just looking at his last 5 games, he's only thrown 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So maybe a little bit of a slump there. Maybe that has to do with him being banged up. So we'll see how he bounces back. Obviously, he's going to need to bounce back in a big way here in the semifinals.
To me, Michigan seems like the type of team where they just do what they have to do to win the game.
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily glory from them to, I got to throw a bunch of touchdowns, or, I have to run for a bunch of touchdowns. The point of them is to play defense, run the ball.
That's right.
Every once in a while they're going to come out in one of those formations, maybe try to catch you off guard. But they know that they have to match the physicality of Alabama. Right. Because if Alabama's going to be one thing, it's going to be a physical football team.
No doubt about it. And I think the other thing, I talked about Jalen Milroe having a chip on his shoulder. The whole Michigan program has a chip on their shoulder.
For sure.
They're 0-2.
Right.
In
this is their third straight semifinals.
Third straight semifinals. They lost the last 2. So how are they going to come out this time? That was something that was asked about as well. So that's something on their mind as well. They said they want to come out. They want to have a fast start. They kind of want to have some confidence, build some confidence early on, and just see where the game goes. But they definitely want to try and get off to a fast start, and I don't blame them. You want to have some confidence, especially against a team like Alabama. You don't want to be playing from behind and letting them get comfortable.
But overall, Michigan has to be proud of themselves for getting to this moment, because before they started this CFP playoff run, you know what they were? They were a below 500 team during the pandemic. They were 2-4 during the shortened season.
That's right.
And for them to make 3 straight semifinals, they have to be proud of that. But if any time is the moment for them to get past just the semifinal, it's this year.
Right.
They're the number 1 seed. They haven't lost this whole season. They've been through the ups and downs of their coach being with them, their coach not being with them.
Played in just 6 games. So Jim Harbaugh has missed half of the season.
Right.
Or at least, he's been at practice, but when it comes to games, only 6.
So they have experience. The coordinators, they've had to step up. The players have had to step up. They've been through all of the adversity. And if you were to write, like you mentioned, Disney, if you were to write a Disney story, those would be the elements that a championship team would have to have. But so the same thing for Alabama. For them to start the season, early in the season, they lose to Texas, they almost lose to South Florida, and then they just don't look like Alabama, but they keep winning. And then when they play Georgia, the number 1 team, they beat them, they're here. And so both of these teams have earned the right to be here.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that this is going to be a 1 versus 4 CFP game at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
They've had semifinals before, and they've had championship games, but never a 1 versus 4.
Okay.
And I was reading the notes before the game, and I found this interesting. You know who the number 1 and number 2 teams are all time with wins in college football?
Yes, I do. Fun
Who?
fact. I was in another way. So Alabama is second, and Michigan is number 1.
Correct.
And I think they hit that milestone this year.
Yeah, they
if I
passed
remember
1,000.
correctly. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. That's
Michigan
what it was.
has 1,000
That's right.
wins
Yeah.
all time.
Yeah.
So these are 2 of the most storied programs. And then you know where Michigan won their last national championship?
I'm gonna
Right here on this
Pasadena.
field against Washington State when they had to split with Nebraska.
That's right.
But like this is important. And see, there's Michigan coming out
Yeah.
right now.
It's getting loud. It's starting to
We're
get
on the
loud.
Michigan side of the field. Like we're not taking sides in this
Yeah.
game, but we just happen to be standing on the Michigan side.
Yeah.
We did get a chance to watch Alabama roll in here. I mean, if any team is a confident team, it's Alabama. Like those guys look like they've been here before. You know why?
Right.
Because
Yeah, they
a
have.
lot of them have.
Well, Nick Saban, from what I remember doing my preview, as you mentioned earlier at OCRegister.com, make sure you guys go and check that out. Is Nick Saban is 5-1 in semifinal
It might
games?
be 6-1.
It might be. It's 5-1, 6-1.
It's a lot in one.
I think the first one that he lost, or the one he lost, was like the first kind of series of the playoff and what it was going to be. So outside of that, I mean, you get in the playoffs and Alabama's going to do its thing. So it's hard to count them out even if they're the 4 seed.
But this is also a redemption game for Michigan's running back Blake Corum.
That's right. Yeah.
Because this is a guy who had to come to LA to do his surgery, and I think the Michigan players, they feel like this is much more of a historic game because they have that Big Ten connection.
that's right.
But Alabama's been here before. It's not like they've never been to the Rose Bowl, and it's not like Saban's never been.
Right.
But these Alabama players, they don't have that same connection. But for Michigan, like they know that this is the place where they win national championships. Like pretty much every single time Michigan has ever won a national championship, it's here. And obviously they can't win it here, but they can lose it here. If they lose this game, they won't win it.
That's right.
So like they have to do what they have to do here at the Rose Bowl, and this would make it sweet. The other thing about it is Michigan, like, you know, they got all of these redemption kind of things. Like they got a chance to practice at SoFi Stadium on Saturday.
That's right.
Where the CFP
Yeah.
game was supposed to be.
Right.
And so like they've got that out their system now. So like everything is set up for them to do what they have to do in this game. But I mean, they're doing it against Alabama. And you could argue that if Alabama beat Georgia, and coming into this, Georgia was the number 1 team, right? You could argue that Alabama is not your average 4 seed.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, just the fact that they're in, and I think that was the whole thing. That was something that was asked about during media availability. Is when it was announced, Alabama was announced as a 4 seed, and that was kind of a shocker because there was the whole thing with Florida State,
Right.
And that whole thing. We won't get into all that.
But they couldn't jump Texas because Texas beat them.
No, they couldn't. But so when they kind of panned to
And they weren't
Michigan,
going to jump Washington, and they're undefeated.
when they panned to Michigan and they say you're playing Alabama, they're like, oh. All right, so
Who else did they think they were going to play? Florida State?
I think they were hoping to play Florida State.
Clearly,
without-
the SEC champion was going to make it. A
Correct.
one-loss SEC champion is going to make it. And then, like, this is the last year of the Final Four. After this, we're going to go to the 12, and all of this is going to change. And, you know, Ohio State will be in there if it was this year. Michigan, maybe even Penn State. You know, Missouri, just so many different teams.
It's going to change quite a bit.
Yeah. So we're really looking forward to the game. I don't want to make a prediction. Do you?
I have it on OCRegister.com, but I remember. I think I went Alabama 21, Michigan 14, if I remember correctly. I had 21-14. I'm not expecting a lot of high scoring here.
I'm not gonna make a prediction.
But actually.
But I will tell you, I'm writing about Michigan after the game. So
I got Alabama covered.
Draw, however it goes, I'm writing about Michigan. He's going to write about Alabama. We have team coverage at all of our newspapers.
We got columnists. We got team coverage, photographers. We got all the videos. We got everything you need over at OCRegister.com.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see y'all later on in this coverage.